Ultra-processed foods damage the gut microbiome in ways that are increasingly harmful at each stage of life, from childhood to old age, and the long-term consequences for metabolism and immunity are far more serious than most people realize. These foods, stripped of fiber, overloaded with sugars, unhealthy fats, salt, emulsifiers, and preservatives, create a hostile environment for beneficial gut bacteria. Over time, they shift microbial composition towards species that promote inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and immune dysregulation. The result is a slow, often invisible decline in gut health that undermines nearly every system in the body. Because microbiome resilience decreases with age, early damage accumulates, turning decades of processed food consumption into a biological burden that becomes harder to reverse. In children, the impact is immediate and profound. The gut microbiome is still developing, and exposure to ultra-processed foods at this critical window can distort microbial diversity in ways that affect lifelong health. Children who consume diets rich in sugary snacks, artificial flavors, packaged meals, and fast food show reduced populations of beneficial bacteria such as bifidobacteria and lactobacillus. These microbes are essential for building immune tolerance, regulating inflammation, and training the developing immune system to distinguish friend from foe. When they decline, children become more vulnerable to allergies, asthma, autoimmune tendencies, and metabolic problems. Emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners, common in children's processed foods, further weaken the gut barrier, promoting a pro-inflammatory environment that may contribute to early-onset obesity and insulin resistance. The danger is that these changes often go unnoticed until much later in life, when immune dysfunction and metabolic issues become more apparent. In adults, the microbiome becomes more stable but also more sensitive to long-term dietary patterns. Years of ultra-processed food consumption gradually reduce microbial diversity and promote the growth of harmful species linked to inflammation, weight gain, and metabolic disease. Adults who frequently consume processed meats, refined carbohydrates, ready-to-eat meals, and sugary beverages experience increased production of inflammatory bacterial metabolites such as lipopolysaccharides, LPS. When LPS leaks into the bloodstream, a condition called metabolic endotoxemia, it triggers systemic inflammation that worsens insulin resistance, accelerates fat storage, and increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. The gut lining becomes more permeable, the immune system becomes chronically activated, and the balance between beneficial and harmful microbes tilts toward a state associated with obesity, fatty liver disease, and even mood disorders. What makes this especially dangerous is that adults often normalize digestive issues, fatigue, or weight gain without realizing these symptoms often reflect a deeper microbial imbalance. In older adults, the microbiome is more fragile and more easily disrupted. Aging naturally reduces microbial diversity and weakens the gut barrier, making seniors especially vulnerable to the harmful effects of ultra-processed foods. A diet heavy in processed items accelerates the loss of key microbial species involved in digestion, immunity, and inflammation control. As beneficial microbes decline, harmful species proliferate, producing toxins that inflame the gut and impair nutrient absorption. This contributes to sarcopenia, muscle loss, frailty, cognitive decline, and increased susceptibility to infections. Older adults who consume ultra-processed foods are more likely to experience chronic constipation, weakened immune responses, and worsened metabolic markers such as blood sugar and cholesterol. The consequences can be severe. Studies show that diminished microbiome diversity in the elderly is associated with faster biological aging, greater hospitalization risk, and higher mortality. Because older adults already experience reduced physiological resilience, the inflammatory burden from a disrupted gut microbiome can rapidly accelerate overall decline. Across the lifespan, the most alarming issue is how cumulative microbiome damage becomes. A child who loses microbial diversity due to processed foods may enter adulthood with weakened metabolic and immune resilience. An adult who continues to eat these foods deepens the inflammatory and metabolic dysfunction. An older adult living with decades of microbial imbalance faces a steep decline in immunity, digestion, brain function, and metabolic stability. Ultra-processed foods consistently erode the gut's ability to regulate inflammation, control blood sugar, digest nutrients, and protect against disease. The implications are sweeping: impaired metabolism, weakened immunity, increased risk of chronic inflammation, vulnerability to infection, heightened risk of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and even accelerated cognitive decline. What begins as subtle digestive discomfort or small shifts in microbial balance can develop into systemic dysfunction that affects nearly every aspect of health. The warning is clear and urgent. Ultra-processed foods steadily dismantle the gut microbiome from childhood to old age, stripping away the microbial diversity and resilience that protect the body from disease. The longer these foods dominate the diet, the deeper the damage becomes, turning convenience into a quiet but powerful driver of metabolic breakdown, immune fragility, and faster aging.